And our final presentation for this concurrent session is Michelle Meachem, the Program Coordinator from Upskilling Carers program with TAFE New South Wales, and carer Rita Hughes also presenting with her, presenting on the Upskilling Carers, nurturing the diversity of caring into a valued vocational asset.
Oh, it's that time of day, isn't it? So just in light of when I did see, I have to do this, don't I? In light of when I did see when we were presenting today, I took on board that it would be this type of moment. So what I'm offering you the opportunity, either as a bit of a wake-up or just to get a bit more involved in this presentation, I'm running it on Mentimeter. So if you still have any charge left on your phone at this time of day, you can log on to that website address up there and tick the button that says you want to vote, and you can then just plug in that 603378. You can watch the presentation on your phone, so you don't even have to look at me. But you can't race through my presentation any quicker than me. So if you'd like to join, we'd love to have a little bit of feedback from you on the presentation. It may well cut into question time, but I think we pretty much cover everything anyway. Okay. Thank you very much for having both of us here today. I'll tell you a little bit now about the Upskilling Carers program. So I work for TAFE New South Wales, and last year, around about July last year, we were lucky enough to and successful in receiving a carer. Sorry, let the tech take over. You go. Winning a program under the Care Investment Scheme with DCJ, and we're just past the 1 year mark in actually running this program all across TAFE. So you good for me to change over now? Okay. So I'll tell you a little bit about Carer to Career, and the banner that you'll see there is currently trawling through Facebook for Carers Week. You'll be able to see it sort of pop up on social media and things like that. It's a program that supports carers to be recognised for their lived experience skills, as well as carers rightly do tell you, create other opportunities within the work and education space for opportunities that they're looking for. So I'll explain a little bit more about what goes on there. But I just wanted to get an idea of who I'm actually talking to today. So your very first question is relatively simple. Who's joining us? Whether you identify as a carer, a worker, a carer and a worker, or somebody else. Okay, so if you'd like to just vote now. Anybody else? Good to go? Okay. So lots of people doing exactly the type of outcome that this program is about. Okay, so what you will see on the TAFE website is a customer journey map explaining what the program is about. So it isn't easy for you to see unless you are probably looking on your phone. So I'll just outline it for you. So we ask you to centrally register, so you can be anywhere in New South Wales, and we have just the one central registration. You fill in your registration, and it really is just asking for your contact details, and then you'll be contacted by a human. Okay. In some peak times, occasionally what we might actually do is give you an opportunity to respond to a couple of other questions, just so you don't lose interest while you're waiting, just in those peak times. And I'll explain in a minute why you are waiting. Then you'll have some contact. And then that initial pathway. So I'm trying to look at what the actual photo says now. Okay, and then we will ask you to basically create a resume, a carer resume for yourself. And that has been in place for a while. Many of you will be familiar with it. It's called the Skills Link to Work, and it's a part of that carer investment program, and it helps create for you to be able to put in some of the things that you're doing as a carer, and the actual product will then churn that out at the other end as a carer resume. So if you're somebody looking for work and don't quite know how to articulate some of the responses that you want, and you largely are going to be using your carer experience, this product will actually help create a resume, and then you've got the chance to sort of personalise that a bit beyond what you're doing. We use it very much as a self-assessment, so it gives us a chance to collect a piece of evidence about you, and have a look at what you're actually sort of saying in your experiences and things like that. Moving along, we then come back to you with presenting a number of choices or options or pathways that you might like to look at. You may, for example, when the carers ring, they either don't know what they want, they do know what they want, or they'd like you to invent what they want. Okay, so that's where I sort of said that's the nice version that sits on the website. What happens at a front-facing level, and the reason I'm saying that at times you will be waiting, I coordinate it for the whole state, so it's just me. Okay, so sometimes there will be a little bit of a delay for those responses in really peak times like Carers Week. The rest of the time we're pretty good at responding to you very quickly. So what I've learned very much a year on is that I listen to what you say. I make those linkages. So you might have said to me, well, I used to be a baker before I had my caring role, and now I'm sort of self-managing the NDIS, and so on and so on and so on. And as I sort of hear you talk, it creates a picture for me, which then means that I can then respond to you with that type of advice about, have you thought about combining the two? There's about to be a new line item that would very much suit the fact that you used to be a baker, and the person seeking support would actually like some support while they're at TAFE doing their bakery course. Things like that. So the third part of it is about being really responsive. So this time last year, lots of the carers were saying to us that they didn't want to do direct support work, that they felt that they were doing that in their home life, and they wanted something quite different. Many of them were self-managing the NDIS or very much involved in the management of the consumer-directed care space in the elder care. And so the comment was often, yeah, I pay a support coordinator, but I actually do all of it myself. So what we actually did in response to that was have a look at what that job role actually has in terms of its performance criteria. And there is no current certificate in support coordination, so we built one. And so Rita, who's going to speak to you shortly, has actually she's coming towards the end of that completion of that partial qualification. There were some other reasons that created barriers for carers, none of which are any different to what you have heard today around terms in things like being able to afford such a thing, did they qualify for exemptions, all of those types of things, time, So we just continually, every time you tell us this, we just continually respond in however we can be flexible around those things. So we created the course, and we went after funding because nobody could pay for it, and then we went after, and then we needed to make it extremely flexible because we have currently in our group, our most southern carer is in Bega, and our most northern carer is in Mudgee. So, which was really western, I realise that. So we needed to be able to find ways where you could come together and that everybody could have the same learning experience. So that's an example of what we've done in terms of that listen, link, respond. And it will continue to grow along. I might get a chance to tell you a little bit more about that. The original, when we applied for the tender, the focus was very much on recognition of your lived experience. And so there are a number of people gaining qualifications just out of, just through a straight RPL process as well. So they're providing their evidence in a number of ways and being recognised against a qualification that would equal equivalency around that. So I just, in the spirit of that, I just wanted you to take a moment and have a think about one word that would describe the strengths of a carer that you know. And at this time of day, you're welcome to make it yourself. Great skill for advocacy. So when we're looking at that, even just with one word, without me hearing any of the other backstory to where that's coming from, there's a whole heap of things that emerge. We have 1,200 qualifications on scope at TAFE New South Wales. Not all carers are engaged in courses related to a caring or a human services role. So you do not have to choose something like support coordination. What the carer program at TAFE does is provide some wraparound support. So whilst I've got some support here today from people that are doing the skill set in support coordination, I've also got people in horticulture and baking and Aboriginal health worker, and so all types of different spaces. And the program provides wraparound support. So some of the things that you've experienced in the past at TAFE as carers has been lack of flexibility about assessment tasks, people making adjustments, you being able to pay off your fees, all sorts of things. So each of those things, the program can support you by either advocating for your needs, so we can jump up and down at our colleagues, and after hearing yours, one of the first things that we're jumping up and down about is that TAFE needs to get that status as well. And so we can help with that, but we can also help with tutoring support and things like that. So being able to sort of, whatever pathway you need to get to your end result, this program just constantly reinvents itself around your support. Okay. Thank you very much for your comments. They'll continue, if you continue to vote, it will go on, but I will change the slide, or they might ding me. Some of the achievements that have happened have been completely unrelated to gaining qualifications. So more than one person that was involved in presenting today was supported by getting information about the thing that they wanted to do, which wasn't a qualification, through this program. So there's a number of sort of, I guess, awareness, anything to do with upskilling, we will support people with, but not all of that is TAFE products. So sometimes it is about letting carers know when there are carer-specific jobs available, and supporting them to be able to, access, and sometimes it might be looking at last-minute resume and those sorts of things. Also, it's things like making people aware that you can become a rep for Carers New South Wales, and other types of peak organisations. So there's a lot of sort of other things happening in the space as well. So just there's some of the outcomes. Obviously, some people have graduated from a qualification. Some people contact us and just say, it's actually the care recipient, and they want to know about, courses that they transition from high school to adult education, how to get in the back door around things like that. So there's all sorts of things happening in that space. As I said, a range of, sometimes it's skill sets around things like, I'd just like to improve my technology skills, and that might be so I can better operate the portal when it's working. But it also might be that it might be around, I do want this because I could see that I could do some admin work from home, or, that I might be able to have, flexible work if I improve my tech skills. As I said, often the carers are coming up with the new ideas themselves. Meeting each other, just even, forming new networks through this program because they are on a course together and things like that. So, examples are, sort of all different directions. And one of the greatest things that we find, if you're a carer sort of thinking, I don't know how I'd go with something like that, what has very much become mantra for me is you can all walk the walk. Often what I'm doing is polishing your talk the talk. Just so that it's sitting across some of that jargon that's sitting in employment, or recognising what you're doing as a carer and what that equivalency is in terms of, being able to apply that to a job role. I won't spend too much time on the testimonials. But just a few testimonials about people that have previously, completed through the RPL process, that are either in work or are going on to do further study, or now having a role with Carers New South Wales. And so in terms of the sort of coming online and managing this whole of New South Wales situation, we find that we end up gathering at events like this. So because people become aware of events like this through this program, we actually end up meeting up face to face. So just some examples of things that we've gone. Courtney and I went to the commissions training up at Newcastle. Jeff was at one of the Ready, Set, Connect, or the One Community events for his networking unit. Rita and Craig actually took over the carers table at the Chatswood event. Debbie was actually Debbie did her training for Carers New South Wales representation, and for 10 years she hadn't left her home. So she took the opportunity, because she knew she'd be anxious about catching the train back to Western Sydney. So she took the opportunity to book in overnight and go tick something off a vision board, and that was to go to Vivid. So there was sort of that combination event there. Sonia was at the Elder Abuse Workshop, and we also have a group on Facebook where we promote lots of free online. So again, that upskilling theme from all different types of providers. Okay, so anybody that's making online training available. Okay, I better get going now. So I'm going to hand over quickly to Rita.
Hi everyone. I'm not generally a public speaker, so bear with me as I go through my little spiel. So I'm a carer, a student of TAFE, and I'm currently working as a support coordinator with an organisation called CCNB. I've recently acquired that position since joining the course with Michelle. what Michelle's course pointed out to me is, just the recognition of the skills that a carer has and can develop. So I didn't recognise I was a carer. I was a parent and doing as parents do, raising children. One just happened to have a disability. Other people had other issues. My husband had some things going on with health, but you don't recognise that as a carer. So when Michelle asked me to come and talk today, I think, oh, well, God, what does a carer do? So what I actually did, in my role as CCM with CCMB, I was recruited to an organisation called RenCare. So I rang Renee at RenCare and said, when you interviewed me, what skills did you see that I had that you thought were quite, useful? She didn't know that I had a carer's background. She just thought I was an employee. But she said what stood out for her was my high level of empathy, my how very clear I was on client rights, my recognising when values weren't aligned with mine, and when someone spoke about an individual, I felt that wasn't right from my viewpoint as a carer. I'm friendly and I'm good at advocating. She felt that my skills in that area were quite strong, not knowing that I had a carer's background. So when I had revealed to her, yes, well, I'm actually a carer, she said, well, that falls into line with what she'd seen. So working as a support coordinator, which I thought, because everyone talks about support coordination when you've got an NDIS package, stepping into that role has really opened my eyes. I see everything as a consumer. I don't necessarily see things as a support coordinator. So when things aren't flowing as I feel they should in regards to the participant, I'm getting quite stressed about it, and I'm getting caught up in wanting to provide the best quality of service. It's a challenging role, but my skills as a carer are coming into that environment in quite a big way. I can recognise what the parent carers or the family carers are enduring. I spent this week on a number of occasions guiding people through the NDIS portal, through the my plan manager websites and that. So my skills as a carer have fallen into line as my role as a support coordinator. I'm not sure how you want me to follow on from that, but thank you for taking the time, and it's been lovely being here today. Thank you.
So I'm going to be quite bold. I think saw lots of smiles, and I got lots of people sort of recognising, oh yeah, this is clever. So I'm going to be bold enough to ask you to give me some feedback. It won't record that it was you that said it, and I won't be knocking on your door next week. But just to give us a bit of an idea, because it's a 2-year tender. TAFE's goal is very much for this to become a sustainable, independent part of TAFE, so that this would go on beyond the tender. And we need to look at different ways about how we might actually build that sustainability. Some ways that I'm suggesting you could help us with no more commitment than today is to help spread the word about us. So I do have some cards here to become a host employer. And what that actually means is when I apply for this funding, I actually need an organisation to fill in a letter that actually says, yes, we recognise that there are job vacancies in this space. So the employer doesn't necessarily need to go on to commit to employing anybody, but we do need recognition that there is a gap in, say, support coordination, those sorts of things. Going forward, costs is an issue. Education isn't completely free. And so, ways that we're sort of looking at is perhaps sponsoring a carer going forward. What you can certainly request is a product. So if you've got a gap in workforce development that you can see, or you're sort of thinking, geez, if we could uptrain some of our own staff and potentially find an opportunity to increase the carers in our workforce, you could request a product and we can customise that for you. Largely, and I thank you very much that it has got the highest level of votes, is to actually value lived experience. A lot of the carers are giving me feedback that they're prior to working with us, so on that initial registration, they have been applying for jobs, and the feedback is that lots of them will say that they're feeling that it's age-related, but there's also feedback like, oh yeah, it sounds like their carer role is too much of a burden. So the example that was just given, I think Georgie gave it before about not necessarily whinging when you're talking to an employer and things like that, maybe saving that for your network, but how people actually present themselves when they are applying for jobs, those sorts of things. Yeah, so and that's the other space where I think lived experience, both for people that you love and are caring for, is very much identified as an area in the ILC that they're trying to tackle. And I would say the same thing in the carer space, that everybody thinks it sounds great, and yet the feedback we're still getting largely is that carers aren't getting a fair go in terms of you seeing their lived experience as an asset, rather than, potentially will they be able to swap hats. Leave the swapping hat bit to me. That's what they're in the program for. And yeah, I'd like to thank Carers New South Wales very much for including us here today, and I also like to thank our carer crew that have come down and will no doubt get ticks off in their networking unit for being here today, but very much like to thank you very much for having us both. Cheers.
Did we have any quick questions? We've probably got time for one or two questions. Up the back. Have we got a loud voice, or have we got Grace coming with them?
Tomorrow.
I'm about to start the course tomorrow, which I'm very excited about. Is there any opportunity for connecting with work opportunities? Just apropos of your last comment, and other barriers like age and all that sort of stuff, and being in Wollongong and.
Yeah, the age one's probably still a bit tricky, because most people will sort of say, no, that wasn't the reason. But very much so about the work opportunities. One of the things we've done with the support coordination this time has actually been to bring some support, some existing workers into the space as well. So we're trying to even nurture from large providers that have a footprint across New South Wales, so that we are sort of building from that grassroots level, who should be really coming and working for our organisation, those sorts of things, as well as, I'm sure she won't mind me saying, she's upstairs right now, but we're now pipelining 2 new products next year that are in relation to the ICSS, because when I hear them talk today, I hear 4 jobs for carers, okay, in that space as well. And so I knew that some time ago, and so what we're going to partner with UTS is to support people to upskill in the space of research, working for peak bodies in advocacy, project work, those types of other, I guess, intermediary or periphery roles, and often it is a space where you can do project work, and we always have a shortage of teachers at TAFE as well, and so a number of people that are in the program are getting their vocational qualification through their RPL, and then studying the TAE, which is going to be the new learning part. So we'll also have people with lived experience actually influencing the future generations and workforce as well, through that space. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Alrighty, we're on a really tight time frame, so I'm sorry to cut things off, but we've had some great speakers this afternoon, so I'd just like to thank all of our presenters that have presented in this session.